seat of his britches, and he hauls him right out of the city, and he employs angels in Lot's case. In your case, he may employ a number of things in order to line you up with doctrine, in order to answer the prayers of a spiritual believer. He may employ people, he may employ circumstances, he may employ events, he may employ a number of things. But the point is, sometimes direct intervention by the Lord is the only way. Whether you're praying for a loved one who is a queer and mixed up in the gay blade society, or a loved one who's just simply negative to Bible doctrine. You see, when I pray for you, for example, for many of you, I never pray that the Lord will make the issue clear. I pray that he'll move in and clobber where necessary, because you know the issue already. You've been exposed to the issue so many times, it's ludicrous. And for me to pray that would be an affront to God's intelligence. And it would be hypocrisy, too, because all the time the desire of my heart would be to move in and clobber you. So realize something in your prayer life. Some of you don't know what it is not to cling to the details of life. The details of life, you cherish them, you'll run after them, you allow them to control your life, and even though they're temporal and are going to phase out someday, you continue to. And that's one reason you cling all the more. See, you know what the issue is. You're very aware of what the issue is. The more you see the picture, the more you cling. So there's only one prayer. That's divine intervention, just like this. Whatever it takes, a jolt here, a jolt there, just pray that the Lord will move in and take things in his own hands and move out. And if you ever fall into the gay blade society, that's what I'll pray for you. That the Lord just move in and clobber you and move you out. Not that he make the issue clear. See, there's beyond a certain point that making the issue clear is invalid. So you realize this. This is just by way of principle tonight. That's the way some of you better start praying if you ever expect to make any headway. Not for the Lord to make the issue clear, but for the Lord to move in and move somebody out or clobber somebody. All right, I'm going to stop at that point in the text, and I promised you before that I would read you a certain little portion here of a very interesting little excerpt that is entitled, How to Make Men of Your Boys. And I assume that you're interested, because that's exactly what this series is about. This is written by Taylor Caldwell, very noted novelist, America's most respected novelist, has some things to say about smother love and how to preserve our masculine resources. By Taylor Caldwell. The title is How to Make Men of Your Boys. I don't know if Taylor Caldwell, who is a woman incidentally, is a believer or not, but I do know that she possesses some fantastic qualities of an understanding of divine institution. All right? The article begins, Gentlemen, please pass this article by. It is only for you ladies. Scores of whom have innocently written me for advice as to how best to raise their little boys to truly manly, American, patriotic, God-fearing, law-abiding citizens of our country. I am touched by their faith in my omniscience. I don't have that faith myself, she says, though I have studied the boys, being the world's greatest admirer of those of the male persuasion. So, goodbye, gentlemen. See you another time. Well, apparently she wanted the men to read this. That's the best way to get it. And now for you ladies, let us sit down and talk confidentially together about a very important matter. We women know that real, honest-to-God men hardly exist anymore. That homosexualism has vastly increased and become overt in America, and that it has now in Washington and New York taken on respectability and elan and has an air of delicate chic. We know now that the student body of our colleges and the faculties, too, reek with feminine males and limp-wristed flits. Drugs and homosexuality are rampant among male youth. They seem to go together. We are not concerned just now over the fact that our government is permeated with deviates who are often manipulated by our nation's enemies and a terrible hazard to our country. We are mostly concerned at this immediate time with a general failure of manhood among boys, and most of us understand that it begins practically in the bassinet. We also know that such a national failure has brought down the great empires and republics of the past and may bring down America to ruin too, unless the tendency can be reversed. How can you be certain that your son or sons will escape the emasculating pollution? It is well known that both sexes possess latent characteristics of the other sex, and that environment and companions of evil intent can bring out the submerged tendencies. To become a man, a boy must be treated as a man from the very cradle. But first of all, his mother must be a woman, whose husband is her dearest treasure above all else, whose children are secondary to her mate in all things. A woman must be womanly, not just feminine. She must have the strong instincts of a woman and a love for her home. It sounds like she's been listening to tapes. A mother whose first concern is sex and clothes and personal indulgence and hairdos will not produce a manly son. I've known dozens of these women, and invariably their sons have been lightweights. How could they escape the insistent picture of self-indulgence and self-love which they saw every day in their lives as children in their mothers? How could they not see with what indifference their fathers were treated, and how they were regarded as providers of goodies and not as beloved? The mother was the queen, arrogant, svelte, greedy, perfumed, silken, demanding all things. And so the little boys began to identify with these creatures, these heartless, stupid, selfish, gasping, inane, and pretty things. Mama was everything. She implied that firmly herself. And boys want to be everything too, so they identified with Mama. There is the root of this emasculation far beyond what the head shrinkers call smother love. It is no accident that homosexual men almost invariably hate their mothers. Homosexuals are made at home from the very earliest years. Hatred for women and for Mama in particular is the homosexual's most outstanding characteristic. One can feel honest compassion for them and condemn their mothers, who are trivial women and murderers of the best in their men, emasculators really. So treat your son from the very bassinet to be manly. He is a human being and has dignity from his birth. He is not a cutesy toy. He is not adorable. He is not sweet. He is an embryo man. Treat him so. Let him see from infanthood that you respect his status, and he will acquire pride in himself. You ladies should read Phil Wiley's Generation of Vipers. And though you will hardly disagree with Phil, as I did, on many topics and feel anger at his shouted loathing of mom and momism, he does have a point. The smother type of woman corrupts, degrades, and emasculates her son. How many times have you seen it yourself? And forget the absurd idea that children, even in the bassinet, are helpless. I've noticed that by the time a child, a boy especially, is a month old, he has his mother's number down exactly. He may not be able to talk or sit up or speak, but he is extraordinarily bright and clear-eyed, far more than he will ever be again. Babies have no sentimentalities. I've seen my grandsons just crawling, sit up and ponder on how to devil Mama and get something they want. You could almost hear their little brains clicking as they turned the subject over in their minds. They considered whether a spell of yelling would accomplish things or not. Then they looked at Mama most thoughtfully, weighing her possible reactions to the demand. And quite often I've seen them come to the conclusion that this time Mama was not in the mood, or the idea is hopeless, and they continued to crawl and go about their business. It is this clarity of understanding and honest animal cunning which should be cultivated and made to work for the boy's manly future. So no matter how delightful your baby is, look at him with respect and never, but never use comfy, cozy, chintzy language to him. Give him your love and gentleness and tenderness, of course, and hug and kiss him when you wish, and you'll wish far more often than he will. But again, treat him with the dignity he deserves. Let him know at all times that you are on to him, and he'll be delighted and amused in the dark, little realistic heart of him, and he'll respect you and honor you. Always be one step ahead of Johnny and 2 steps ahead of his plottings. He'll not only regard you with consideration when he is a baby, but will be considerate of you when he is older, even during adolescence. Now, it ought to be worth it for those 3 words. No matter whether 10 days old, 10 years old, or 20 has anything, no man, rather, whether 10 days old, 10 years old, or 20 has anything but contempt for the soft touch. When he is a man, then, properly brought up by a proper mother, he will detest the whining and the deliberate helpless, and the faker, the malingerer, and the feeble liberal. He will be brave and proud and truly masculine, scornful of those who live, as Samuel Butler put it, only to lick the platter clean and leave a pile of offal. He will demand of others that they be men too, and so will be a force of strength in a world which sadly lacks true men in these days. His voice will be loud and clear before politicians, and he will never be guilty of betraying his country. Best of all, as Solomon says of true mothers, he will rise up and call his mother blessed, and say of her, all her ways were pleasantness and all her paths were peace. What more can a mother desire? There is one hippy-yippy phrase which delights me and which is most expressive. Tell it like it is. That goes for your boy children. Girls are less likely to believe mama's homey little lies and cutenesses all dressed up in sweet phrases. Therefore, tell your boy children the absolute truth on any occasion, no matter how tragic or distasteful or horrible it is. A man should learn the truth from his cradle. Let us get it firmly in mind. Children are tough and resilient and hard-nosed. They're not petals and flowers, as Dr. Spock once insisted to me in a letter. They are saner and colder of heart and more adaptable and tougher than they will ever be after they reach their majority. They have no illusions. The dreams of children are violent dreams, not concerned with gardens and fairies. Their aims are strong and sturdy and ruthless, concerned with self. Above all, children catch on to darling euphemisms at once, and cooing lying voices and false smiles, and they despise them. Children are primitive men. They are of the cave absolutely. We civilize them later, but civilization does not necessarily include lies. In fact, any civilization based on lies, euphemisms, fantasies, unreal ideologies, and refusal to face the truth will inevitably die, and good riddance to it. Now, primitive man knew all about life and death. He accepted both without fear and with realism. Men are born, men die. It is a one piece to primitive man, and your child is long a primitive. As a realist, he deserves your respect and your truth. My mother was a realist, she says, and I honor her for that at least. When I was very young, she introduced me to religion and told me the unvarnished truth about death. While I learned that insofar as a man's soul is concerned, there is no death, it didn't exactly comfort me. Children need little comfort. They are filled to the brim with it from birth. But it did give a calm continuity to life, did convince me that our life here is only an interlude in eternity. When a child is taught that he is eternal, he can take life like it is, and the hell with the intermediate trouble or pain. We may become skeptical later, but who isn't? And at least as we grow older, the idea remains in our minds, immutable, and can give us courage. So, introduce your boy child especially to, and she says, of course, religion, even while he is in the bassinet. Boys are far more timid and fragile than girls, as any mother of both can testify. You may think your baby is too young for religion, but he is not. My own children at 6 months understood that I was praying by their bedside or cribside before they could ever speak. I know, for if I neglected the ceremony, they cried and were insistent. Children are ritualists. Well, they may not have even understood to whom I was praying, but they gathered the idea that it was one who protected them and remained with them through the night. And so they had no night terrors. I heard one of my daughters, then only 18 months old, talking over things quite seriously with God after I had kissed her good night. And I had thought that she still was unaware. It was a lovely conversation between an infant and her guardian and her father, and I am sure God listened to it with more tenderness and attention than he ever gives to sophisticated adult prayers, for it was pure and unaffected and right to the point. She wanted a teddy bear. See, there's a desire of the heart. We can learn something from the kids. She wanted a teddy bear, and she described it exactly, then fell asleep assured she would get it. In parenthesis, she did. I myself was not an exceptional child, except that I was bigger and stronger than most others and more bellicose. But I knew to whom I was praying, and when I was very young indeed, and I knew the difference between good and evil. I knew there were no situation ethics or gray places in morals and behavior. You were either on the side of the angels or the side of the devils, and if the latter, you could be absolutely certain that you would be painfully thrashed as soon as Mama or Papa caught you. And that brings me to another point, corporal punishment. Dr. Spock and company think children are too innocent and too lovely to be slammed, and slammed hard. Nonsense. Again, children are primitive man. Primitive man knew what his parents wanted to protect or warn him of danger. And as speech was rare, the blow did the work thoroughly. Watch animal mothers. They do not croon over their young ones and try to persuade them not to do naughty things or dangerous things. They slam, and the youngster immediately learns that some things are forbidden. They love, and they cuddle their infants. But when a lesson in the realities of life is needed, animal mama lifts her paw and lets go painfully, and does not comfort the culprit when he howls. In fact, he learns that he has to work hard to get back into her favor and into the kitchen. Girls, being slightly more civilized at birth than boys, are sometimes, I say sometimes, open more to reason. But don't bet on it, you see. So when a girl is about 12, Mama can often explain things to Susie. And if Susie has learned to trust her mother, she will listen. But boys are more determined. And when they are young, reason seems like a silly thing to them. They do understand the swift punishment. They respect pain. Don't wait for Papa to come home to slam your boy child. Slam him the moment he commits a crime, and slam hard. He may yell and say some incredible things to you, but he will respect the lessons of that good right hand which deals out immediate justice as well as cookies and caresses. You will only teach them physical violence, mourned the Dr. Spock. Well, we have 2 whole generations reared on Dr. Spock and company, and who has been more violent on the campuses, and who has been more savagely murderous on the streets. Our juvenile delinquents are the result of the Spock philosophy. The assaulters of teachers and the old and the helpless were given gentleness a la Spock in their homes. Imply to a boy that no matter what he does, he will be loved, and that he is the most important creature in the world, and he will become, even as a youth and a young man, cruel, arrogant, selfish, demanding, and fierce. When he comes up against the real world of life, unsheltered by pampering Mama, he will be outraged, for no one there will cosset him and defer to him and listen to his vaporings. And he will take revenge on it. He will shriek police brutality when he is given the blows he ought to have had in the playpen. He will be uncontrollable, savage, resentful, believing that everything should be granted him and nothing demanded of him. He had been treated democratically by his parents, and so he will believe as a youth that his callow opinions are as good as anyone else's, and that authority is something to be derided. For isn't he the real authority? He had been taught that by Spock and company. No one advises maltreating a child or beating a child insensible or giving him cruel and unusual punishments. But a good firm palm can be used without permanently crippling a kid. Though when one looks at some of the young hoodlums on the streets today, the thought does intrude. And teach your boy children to work, and work arduously. Even when toddlers, a 3-year-old can help set a table, though not with your best china as yet. He can pull out chairs. He can dust. He can put away his own clothes and toys. He can dig weeds. He can hose lawns. He can straighten furniture. He can carry out garbage. He must learn that if he has a place in the family, an honored place, he also has responsibilities. All money he receives must be earned. He should not be given an allowance just because his father earns money. Therefore, his children must earn it. Or just because, in the next sentence. His father earns money, therefore his children must earn it. By the time a boy enters his teens, he should have a summer job no matter how affluent his father. And be honest about your boy's inherent capabilities. If he is only average or less in elementary school and high school, consider having him taught a trade instead of sending him off to some liberal arts college where he will learn dissent and radicalism. Good machinists and mechanics and plumbers are worth their weight in gold and always will be. Don't listen to the educationists. A successful life does not depend on a college diploma. Half the eminent men and women in Who's Who books never went to any college, though later in life they did receive honorary PhDs. Intelligence is never learned or acquired. It is inherent in a child's genes. No education, never mind what the self-serving educationists say, can increase a child's capacities for learning and understanding and intellect. These things are in him or they are not. She's on very sound ground. If your children manifest a capacity through marks for higher learning, then go to it. But pick out a really decent college and not a democratic one. There are still religion-oriented colleges in the United States and private ones. So be realistic about your children. If Johnny wants to be an automobile mechanic or plumber, and that is where his aptitude is, don't wail about what the neighbors will think or what the teachers say. Give him what he needs with your honest blessing. His manhood and self-respect and success will depend upon it. To make American boys manly, don't be cute with your sons. The English language is rich and vibrant and full of millions of shadings and meanings. Don't use a cute word when a good Anglo-Saxon word will be better. Don't be homey with your boys. Don't handle them in public. I've seen Spock mothers pawing their half-grown boys in supermarkets and on the street, patting them, cuddling them, resting their hands on their shoulders, embracing them. Disgusting. A real boy hates it. Keep your hands to yourself, Mama. Treat your boy's manhood with respect. Even when alone with him, don't be seductive with him, but teach him to stand when you enter a room and remain standing until you're seated. You can't begin too soon. Respect your children's privacy in their own rooms or when they're entertaining. That is, if you have civilized them. Don't poke your mommy head into their bedrooms, nor be peaky or coy. Don't slip into a boy's bedroom without first gaining permission. Only snakes slip. There is a sort of woman, you have probably met her, who softly groans about her, quotes, maternal instincts, and presses her hands to her bosom, rolls her teary eyes and admits, confesses, that she is all mother and just can't help loving up her young son before her audience. She begs you with those wet eyes to understand, and then to applaud her, or at least to give her a sentimental smile in return. Funny thing, though, she isn't overcome with maternal passion when with her daughters, and doesn't manhandle them in public. Winston Churchill once said that if a girly woman was distasteful, a boily man was intolerable. And he was right. You want your son to be a man when he enters his teens and not a girl in a boy's body, nor the sort of male who will be a boy until the day his weary wife either shoots him or divorces him or leaves him, nor the kind who will whimper that he won't defend his country, nor his house, nor his family, but will only love an aggressor. There is one boy, however, whom ye, and boys in quotes, however, whom you may cuddle, pamper, constant hug, and kiss till your heart's content, and be rewarded handsomely for it, and be appreciated. That boy is your husband. Lavish on him all the affection you can. Delight in him. Praise him, even when you'd like to kick him where it would do a lot of good. Tell him he is marvelous, beautiful, magnificent. Lie in your teeth. Men have left their wives for many reasons, but not one I know has left a wife who mothers him. Pretty legs are a dime a dozen, and so are inflated bosoms and mini skirts and perfumed hands and lacquered hair. A man likes them, but if his wife is a mother to him as well as a sweetheart, he will think she is the loveliest woman on earth, above rubies, beyond price, no matter if she weighs 200 pounds and has 3 chins and mousy hair and is stupid. But then a woman like that is not stupid. Only the professional mothers are, with their feminine sons and disgusted daughters. And this is condensed and just an excerpt from Taylor Caldwell's article concerning how to make men out of your boys. That's what this series is all about, how to make men out of your boys, and conversely, how to make women out of your girls. And that's the way it ought to be, straight down the line. All right, let's close.